All right, guys, welcome back to our next episode of Designing the Best You. Before we get started, check out the show notes afterwards to see if anything resonated with you in this episode, or if you need to send it to someone else. There's links in there to join our email list. There's links in there about, as we're talking today about nervous system, things to help regulate your nervous system outside of the things that we're going to talk about that have helped myself and clients. So go ahead and check those out. The things that we were designed for, community, are important. So I highly recommend just being a part of our community. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to be talking about nervous system regulation, dysregulation and regulation through one of the pillars of my systems, okay? We know that as we've talked over the past handful of weeks, as we're diving into a new revolution that people don't talk about, and we've talked about early on in this season and at the end of the last season, that's holding a job, building a career is just in general more complicated and more competitive than ever. I have had clients who have quickly gotten jobs, but they're also very emotionally and physically and mentally stable. And then I've had clients who are not those, and it's taken them months because they've had traumas, work traumas, personal traumas, childhood traumas that have really affected them. And then you add on top of that, you just continue to layer it because why not? Um, those with chronic conditions, autoimmune conditions, mysterious symptoms, that just makes their life and career harder. I'm not saying it's worse. I'm not saying it just adds a different level to it. Okay. To all this health and wellness and things like that. And so today, as we're talking about nervous system dysregulation and how to start overcoming that, my job here, my work, my vocation, it's not something that someone's like, Vennessa, you have to do, you have to get a paycheck, you have to that type of stuff. But my vocation here is to give you guys and others and anyone else that you share this with tools to manage your work, to create more balance, to meet the challenges that you have head on with resilience, because we're all going to have challenges, right? We're all, whether it's health challenges, financial challenges, relationship challenges, sometimes it happens all at once. Sometimes it happens just over the course of our life. Sometimes it comes back and we keep cycling through. Okay. But my goal is to help you look to the future with hope. Okay. Sometimes we can overcome some of these things. Sometimes we have to live through these issues for a long time because we're meant to learn something from them, because we're going to have a huge impact on other people. Okay. So I share all this with you and I continue to talk about all these different things because I've been there and I don't want anyone to suffer or endure what I have over the course of my almost 40 years here on planet Earth. We were designed for more. Okay. And today, as I said, we're going to be tackling one of the pillars of my program. The first one that we start with, and it's nutrition. Okay. It's something that you can implement now. Many of you can. And if you're not, if you already are implementing the nutrition aspects of this, share this episode with someone else, or maybe you'll learn something, just a little tiny tool to your toolbox today. Okay. Now I talk nutrition because everyone's like, oh, I'm following the paleo diet or the keto diet or the autoimmune protocol diet, or diet, guys, is freaking bogus. Okay. I hate that the world thinks that dieting, in quotes here, is going to solve all your issues. It's going to solve your weight loss and all those things. Why not just eat nutritionally for our systems, right? Yes, we're meant to enjoy food. Yes, at the same time that we're meant to enjoy the food, we're also meant to nourish our systems. And we're not going to be able to have the energy that we need if we're not fueling each and individual cell in our body with what it needs. Okay? So now there can be an argument, and if you've listened to previous episodes of mine, we talk a lot about nervous system regulation and whether nutrition or stress management, we can also call it, comes first in our healing journey. I mean, I debate that daily, to be honest. I have gone through all the, we'll call it quote diets, all the different nutrition things, eliminating food sensitivities and intolerances and allergies, all those things over the years. And yes, those helped, but they only help so much. But it is something that so many of us can tackle now Okay, because we have this highly advanced, fast-paced world, and the simplest thing, not the easiest, but the simplest thing that we can do all do right now is work on our nutrition. Okay, so if you're consuming foods that are inflaming your nervous system, as so many of us do, okay? If you guys are listening right when this airs, we had a couple days ago was the Super Bowl. I mean, I highly doubt all of you ate incredibly healthy if you went to a Super Bowl party, right? And the term healthy is debatable too. Um, but if you're inflaming your nervous system, you're going to have a very hard time feeling safe, secure. You're going to have a hard time regulating your emotions, and that's going to spill over into your home life, right? Your parenting, your marriage, your relationships, and your career, right? How easy is it to manage your emotions in any of those situations? It's hard, right? But here's the thing is the health of our microbiome, and any of you who don't know what the microbiome is, the microbiome is a collection of all these microbes like bacteria and fungi and viruses and their genes, okay, that naturally live in our bodies, like on our bodies, like on our bodies, in our hair, on our skin, and inside of us. And they directly affect the health of our central nervous system. Okay. And the unfortunate thing is, so many of us have more unhealthy gut flora than we should. And that causes things like dysbiosis, increases the risk of disease. I mean, how many of you guys are like, oh, why can't I just not have a cold this year? Why can I not? Like, I just had one and got over it a couple of weeks ago, and everyone blames the kids bringing things home. Well, guys, I have kids too. I have three of them. And we had one who had a little bit of a sickness, another one had a little bit of a sickness, and I haven't gotten anything, and our other child hasn't gotten anything. Okay. So it just depends on how healthy that system is. Okay. So it also causes autoimmunity. Not There's many things that cause all these things. These are just things that might add to, exacerbate, and nervous system dysregulation. I mean, think about this. How many of you guys, if you're middle aged, basically, if you are a millennial, okay, grew up on things like McDonald's, Taco Bell, Market Day Foods, and Book It Pizza from Pizza Hut, come on. And now we think we're eating healthier. Okay. We think because it's organic, guys. Unfortunately, the FDA does not regulate organic and all that stuff as well as they really should. So just something to be aware of. It could be better that you're eating that versus the McDonald's and Taco Bell and all those things. Absolutely major step forward, but just something to think about. If you're already eating very clean and you're like, oh, I get all organic, just be careful of where you get your organic stuff from. And by the way, this is something that I grew up with, and I laugh about it all the time. Organic cookies are still bad for you guys, okay? They're still gonna inflame your nervous system because a cookie is still a freaking cookie. It's just because it's organic cane sugar that's in there, or organic powdered sugar, or organic whatever it is, it doesn't mean that it's not gonna inflame your nervous system, okay? Sugar is sugar, all right? Anyways, now that I'm off that horse. But here's the thing, when those bad bacterias, they outweigh or outnumber the good ones, what happens is we have what's called leaky gut. And everyone's kind of heard this and you're like, leaky gut. Well, think about it. Think about just the name leaky gut. Okay. What happens is your intestinal walls, they're supposed to absorb nutrients that your body uses in your bloodstream and in like everything. Okay. And what happens is if our bad bacteria is just like yum, 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 like eating away at stuff, it's like, oh yeah, like it doesn't have that happy balance, right? Like just like we have stress, we have good stress and we have bad stress. We have too much bad stress, what happens, right? If we have good stress, okay, then and we have to have balance of those, okay? You can't have good without the bad, and you can't have bad without the good, right? You can't have that. But what happens is with that leaky gut and those bad guys are yum, num, 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 they're eating the walls of our intestines, basically. They're weakening the intestines and allowing toxins and food particles to enter the bloodstream. And we all know where our blood goes, all over our freaking bodies, right? And here's the thing that we talk about when we're talking about nutrition. Leaky gut is not just caused by inflammatory foods, it's also caused by stress. Okay. And then we have the things like the gluten, the processed sugars, all that thing, alcohol, nutrition deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, excessive use of prescriptions, aspirin, over the counter, you name it. If you just take an antibiotic for every time you get, strep or, an ear infection or something like that, it's going to add up. Okay. It just, our bodies weren't designed to handle all of that. They were created so complex, yet so amazingly that they can heal from a lot of things if we just take the time and slow down. Go into that slow down part a little later. But so now what do we do? Okay. What do we do to nourish our immune system, our digestive tract, our nervous system? Okay. All of our systems, guys, were not created independently of each other. All right. So I can even go into nourishing our cardiovascular system, our musculoskeletal system, like all those different things are all connected. Okay. But here's the thing, what we do in order to help all of our systems is we prioritize nutrient dense, organic, whole foods. Okay. If you don't remember anything else from this episode, nutrient dense, organic, whole foods. Okay. Basically, nothing that comes from a box or a bag and doesn't need a nutrition label because the only ingredient is that item, right? And I just had an avocado sitting over here, but like an avocado, does it need a nutrition label? No, because it's an avocado. Okay. I mean, if you wanted to get real debating about it, you could be like, here's this, it's got skin, and it's got flesh, and it's got a nut. Okay, whatever. But you know what I mean. All right. Every single client that I have had, including myself, including my kids over all the years, that starts eating more whole foods, ones they're not sensitive to, okay? Less processed foods. Have I've noticed and they've noticed that they're calmer, they're more regulated. Okay, there's a lot of other work that goes behind some of that too, especially if you had a lot of trauma. Okay, but they're a lot calmer because what does sugar and processed stuff do to us? It like makes us on edge. It gives us a quick little spike and then back down. Right? Okay. Now, they notice this in just a few months. I want to remind you that myself included and all of you guys are not perfect. We weren't designed that. We were designed to goof up. Okay. We weren't designed to stress out about doing everything perfectly. Okay. I don't want you, and I never encourage anyone to have an all or nothing mentality. People are like, oh my gosh, the autoimmune protocol is so tough and it's so expensive. It's so hard. Okay. I mean, if you have an allergy, yes, please stay away from it. You will have massive issues. If you have a high food sensitivity, yes, please stay away from those foods. But other than that, okay. You have something here and there. People call it cheat meals. I don't believe in a cheat meal. But if you wanted to add, I don't know, goat cheese to your salad and you're supposed to stay away from dairy, or if you wanted to have some, instead of grass-fed beef, you wanted to have just regular beef or whatever it is, or whatever that may be, or you wanted to have, a couple squares of dark chocolate with your meal, that's fine. Okay. I don't recommend it every day, every week type thing that starts to add up. All right. But I do encourage, okay, to stay away from the things that you know are going to just knock you out for days, right? No one wants, first of all, you going to work and having that brain fog, having the gastrointestinal issues, whatever happens when you eat the foods you're not supposed to. You can't function at all. And then you also don't want to call in sick because so many times you call in sick and what happens, right? Same thing if you're going to school, whatever it is. But what you can do now, like right after you're done listening or watching this episode, is you can maximize certain foods and minimize others. Okay, you ready for it? So the ones to maximize are, and again, you can write this down, you can come back, whatever it is, but these are things you can do right now. Again, maximize whole foods, not going to the store Whole Foods. Okay, please save your paycheck, right? But maximize whole foods, things from your garden. And yes, I understand that these whole foods can be more expensive, okay, but they are totally worth it. Okay. I'm telling you, I have looked at our grocery bill over the years, and then I've watched the things like the medications and the supplements, and you're like, oh my gosh, I spend so much on supplements and medications and doctor visits, blah, 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 blah. But when you start to maximize the whole foods, when you start to grow things in a garden, things like that, okay, the other costs go down. We haven't had to use insurance for any kind of test or doctor visit this entire year. Amazing. Okay. I understand that's not possible for everyone yet, now or yet, or maybe not ever, but it does start to minimize those things. Okay. And sometimes you can find those foods, depending on where you live at in the country or in the world, from farmers markets. Okay. You can talk to neighbors. You can go on different things on like Facebook. Um, I don't know if people still do Craigslist or whatever, marketplace you can do. You can go in groups, and people sometimes, I mean, in our neighborhood here in the Chicagoland area, a lot of people have like apple trees. A lot of people grow squash and stuff in the summer. And at the end of the summer, they're like, oh my gosh, like I have so many. Please, people, come by and pick whatever you want. And 99% of the time, it's free. Okay. Those are the types of things that we do. We're meant to be in community, like I said at the beginning of the episode, and I say in every episode. That's another way to build relationships and regulate your nervous system too. Hint, hint. There's also local co-ops. There's gardens that you can, like community gardens. There's also, you can share or barter with neighbors. Be like, hey, you know what? I know you got a garden. I don't have a garden, but I would love to do some lawn care for you or whatever it may be. Or I'd love to cook you a meal. Anything, guys. Don't be afraid. What's the worst thing people are going to say? No. All right. And then they may not talk to you, whatever. That's the worst thing. Okay. Why not ask? Why not build relationships? Okay, so that's the first one to maximize is whole foods. The second one is foods that are high in B vitamins. Now, many people are like, oh, B vitamins, they give you energy. Yay, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, that could be true, right? But what's more true is that B12 specifically and folate actually play a massive role in supporting our nervous system and preventing mood disorders like anxiety or depression. And some of the examples of these foods that you can include that have B vitamins: grass fed beef. I always recommend grass-fed beef and liver at least a couple times a month. I know you're all like gross, but I'm telling you, beef liver, it has so many nutrient dense items in it. It's just, it's amazing. Anyways, dairy, if you can tolerate it, and again, organic, grass-fed dairy, okay? And farm eggs. Again, find a local farmer. Yes, I know the cost of eggs right now and for inflation, it's going up, but find the farm eggs, okay? Stay away from supplements or injections unless you have talked to your practitioner, especially if you have the MTHFR gene mutation, because you can, people with that gene mutation, and I say that because I have it and I work with a bunch of clients who have it as well, is they struggle to properly digest B12 and folate. So you could be taking all the supplements, you could be eating all the foods, and you're still struggling. And there's certain other things that you can do to help with the digestion of those. Okay. So if you need help with this, again, ask your practitioner. And if you don't have one, please reach out to me as always. Okay. I can either help you myself, or I can definitely reach out and connect you with people who you can maybe better relate with. Okay. Another one is foods in marine omegas. And marine, think fish, right? So basically fatty seafood that contains DHA and EPA. Okay, those are things that support the nervous system, again, mood disorders and cognitive health. We all know brain fog, we want to get rid of that, right? So things other than the fatty fish of like sardines and salmons and mackerel are chia seeds, walnuts, flax seeds. I add like those seeds into like my smoothies. So simple. Add a teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever to start off with. Go from there. Okay. Then the other thing is foods high in vitamin D. Why? Because vitamin D, it boosts our mood. Think about when you have a sunny day versus a cloudy day. Okay. It regulates our nervous system, and vitamin D also prevents oxidative damage to our cells. And it helps set our circadian rhythm. Okay. Sure. Yeah. We could sit in the sun all day, but even then, we actually wouldn't get enough. Okay. So, foods you can consume in addition to being out in the sun will be, again, fatty fish. Hey, you killed two birds with one stone, right? The omega 3s and the vitamin D. Boom, right? I'm always about efficiency. Egg yolks, if you can tolerate them, mushrooms. Okay, you could also take a supplement, but again, make sure that you're getting tested to see what your quantity of vitamin D that you have in your system is. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to take, 5,000 IU's a day, and they actually need 2,000, or they're taking 5,000, they actually need 10,000 or 20,000, whatever it is. Okay. So you want to make sure, again, I'm big on testing. Don't guess. Don't put yourself on a specific diet. Don't put yourself on a specific supplement without testing for it. Okay. And these tests are going to save you in the long run. Okay. I promise you. Another thing to maximize is antioxidant rich plants. Okay, you can Google things that are high in antioxidants. Berries are one. Okay. And why? Because they provide us with energy and they protect our nervous system. This is research based, it's been out there for years. Okay. So, those are the things to maximize. And you're like, this is the part I don't like, Vennessa. Things to minimize sugar. Okay. It is one of the most, if not the most, inflammatory substance we can consume. Yes, it's tasty, very tasty. Okay. But here's the thing is too much glucose in our system can actually stress out the cells, dysregulate our nervous system, and just screws with our microbiome from taking in any kind of good nutrients. All right. So, yes, this is what I have all the time is when you minimize sugars, you're going to crave them more. So, do you eat them? Nope. You focus on what one of the maximizers was filling up on whole foods. And it's going to take time. It usually takes a week or two, um, depending on how much sugar you've had in your life over the years to start, like, for example, I don't crave sugar anymore. I used to have chocolate everything, especially that time of month. I would lick frosting off of stuff, okay? Once I started eating the foods that I was supposed to, the whole foods, I didn't want that. I literally have the same freaking chocolate bar sitting in my refrigerator on purpose, not that I'm gonna eat it, but on purpose for the last year because I haven't touched the stuff. Yeah, I've taken a bite here and there of Reese's cups and things like that for my kids and whatnot, but I don't crave it anymore. And my system feels so much better. My brain fog, how I sleep, all the things. Okay. I don't need coffee anymore. All of it. Okay. Your body's going to be looking for as you're minimizing the sugar. And I'm not saying you're ever going to eliminate all of it. Okay. You're not. Let's just be realistic. Our body still does need some sugar, but the processed sugars and whatnots, organic or not, as I said earlier, okay, when you're filling up on that stuff, your body, the good stuff, your body's going to begin to have the nutrients it needs to remain full and satisfied. Okay. The next thing is gluten. Now I know this one is controversial. Like Vanessa, I don't have celiac. I don't have a thyroid condition. I am fine with gluten. I feel fine. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something. This is a personal story. I've always had to, I shouldn't say always, but for the last like 10 years, I've had to eat gluten free. Okay. Do I fail at it sometimes? Yeah, I do. Now, my husband, okay, he's one who can handle gluten. We'll just call it handle. Now, he was in September on some work trips and visiting some family. So he was gone like 2 or 3 weeks out of the whole month. And when you've been eating a certain way and then you eat something that you haven't eaten in a while, what happens? You get bloated, you don't feel good, you have all kinds of bathroom issues, okay, we'll call it. And so since we weren't eating gluten in their house because all of our kids had to be gluten free as well, he came back and he's like, "Oh my goodness." He goes, "I tried." He goes, "But I guess I didn't realize how many things like have gluten in them or touch gluten and man, I just didn't feel good most of the time." Yeah. And again, I know it's controversial because there's so many people these days learning how to, we'll call it redo, because our parents didn't teach us, bake sourdough. Yes, the fermentation reduces the gluten sensitivity. Yes, but I do recommend to all my clients, whether you have a sensitivity or not, to avoid anything with gluten. Okay, which includes homemade baking sourdough, unless you're doing it gluten free, which is a little bit harder. Okay, and not as easy. Same thing, right? Um, but there's also things that are cross-contaminated with gluten that we don't think about. Everyone's like, "Oh, but I'm eating gluten-free chips." Okay, well, did you also know that or gluten-free pasta, that's another one. Okay, well, did you also know instead of using gluten, or semolina, they use rice and corn, and those are direct cross contaminants with gluten. So I always tell people to eliminate those, like anything that touches gluten, which is soy too, and all those things. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, what can I eat?" I'm telling you, our family has done it, and if our little boys can do it, y'all can do it. Okay. But why do I say this again? There's possible interactions of gliadin with thyroid antigens, for one. So if you have any kind of thyroid disease or autoimmune Hashimoto's, yeah, you got to stay with that because you've got two. Research shows that there's a correlation between gut dysbiosis and thyroid conditions. There's this this axis that people don't talk about a lot. And they're starting to now, but it's a thyroid gut axis that connects our gut health to the immune system and thyroid function. Okay. And then the gut dysbiosis actually alters the immune system by promoting inflammation and lowering our immune response. Okay. And that leads to an increase in that leaky guts, which is seen not just in thyroid autoimmune diseases, but other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes, Crohn's, IBS. I could go on, but I won't. Okay. You get the point, right? So please, as you're starting your health journey, it's going to be hard, but it's also easier once you get the mental stability and the self control from removing the gluten. This is also, as I tell my clients, I'm like, but you might think it's physically you're able to do it, but it's more of the mental game in all of this. We're all capable of doing it. Okay, I'll talk about that on another episode too. But the third thing that I say to minimize is processed foods. I don't really need to say anything about that, right? The next one is alcohol. Now, there's so many, we'll call it programs and diets out there like, oh, it's okay to have, a glass of wine. You had a hard day at work, have a beer, you know, have a glass of whiskey, whatever. Okay. Even if you have a small amount, a couple times a month to like calm down or every weekend, let's say, that alcohol suppresses our immune system, it suppresses our nervous system, it impairs our ability to think well and clearly and leads to emotional instability. And there's so many other things that you can have those maximizing foods that can help you calm down, that can help you help you not to depress your nervous system and help you to think well. Okay, we don't need that stuff, guys. You might want it, you might have grown up on it, but you really don't need that, right? Everyone talks about like mommy juice and stuff like that. Y'all stop, okay? Because it's not a joke. It really does affect your health, okay? And another thing I want to mention is that many of you that are listening, we know the demographic here. You're busy at home parents who really care about the health of themselves and their kids. You're working professionals, but something that you should think about is not only do you want to prioritize these types of food that you eat, right? That maximize the ones that you're supposed to eat and minimize the ones you're not, but also how and where you eat. Let me ask you this. We're all going to be guilty as charged, by the way. How many of you eat at your desk, in your cars, rushing from activity to activity, getting in whatever coffee place line to grab a coffee and an egg sandwich? Okay. Reading or watching the news on our phone while we're sitting there shoving the food in, cruising social media while we're eating. Okay. I am guilty as charged lots of times. All right. But here's the thing is in these moments, we actually are activating our body's stress response because we're stimulating other parts of our body that don't need to be stimulated. We don't need to be working and eating at the same time. Now, sometimes, yes, you might need to have working lunches, but if you're doing this, 3, 4, 5 days a week, you're eating on the run, you're eating your kids' leftovers off their plates as you're rushing them to school or whatever it may be. What you're doing is instead of putting yourself into that rest and digest parasympathetic state of our nervous system that we need for proper nutrition, you're setting it into the sympathetic, which your body's like seizing up. It's like, okay, now I'm going to be constipated because I'm stressed. Okay, I'm going to be on high alert, like all the things that we talk about here. Okay, so I want to challenge you this week before or after you implement the stuff at the same time, whatever, but create a calm and peaceful environment for your eating. Okay. I always say in our house, put the devices away when we're eating. We don't have TV on while we're eating. We sit and be with people over stuff. Okay. Because when we do that, when we create a calm and peaceful environment, as much as we possibly can, right, we actually increase the likelihood that our body's going to absorb the nutrients. Pretty cool, huh? Because we're resting and digesting. That's what we're designed to do. Okay. So, over the next few weeks, we're going to be diving into other pillars of my program so you can see how our lives are affected by what we do and what we don't do. And I always challenge you guys because we go against the grain here. of the world. We're not going to be rushing around and running around like crazy and just grabbing and going and doing all the stuff that the world does. We're doing things the way that our bodies were designed to by our creator. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but I want you to see how things like our careers stay stuck because of the things that we are and not doing. Okay. We continue the cycle of burnout. We're like, oh, yeah, we're good now. Well, okay, when this happens, are you still going to be okay? Are you still going to be able to not burn out? Right. And how we can actually thrive through all of this stuff, through these different circumstances that are going to come across in our lives. Okay. Because all the pillars I address in my practice directly impact our productivity and our ability to level up in our careers and in our homes. And if we don't have those things in order, okay, we're going to struggle. Whether or not we have a chronic illness, an autoimmune disease, mysterious symptoms, whatever, we're going to struggle, okay? So, working with someone like myself or someone else who understands your challenges, basically someone who's like lived the life themselves instead of just reading things out of a book or a bunch of journals, okay, is going to allow you to develop the competencies that you actually need to thrive, not just to survive like so many of us are doing, okay? That's my goal because we need people like you who have been given these beautiful gifts and these skills in the workplace to better our communities and our homes and our country, okay? So as always, if you want more clarity, if you're trying to understand what your body's telling you, because that's what symptoms do, they're like, hey, hello, I'm here. Then I encourage you to get on a free call with me so you can not spend all the time, the money, the energy, the effort that I have for the past 15 years. And we get right down to business and helping you can take control of your own health. All right, the link is in the show notes. Please don't wait. And until next time, next week, let's keep uncovering the root cause of your symptoms and designing the best you that this world so desperately needs.